Welcome back to the Studio Sessions. My name is Breck, and I have an update for you guys on the Warner Brothers situation. Let's talk about it. If you have not heard or didn't hear the last episode I talked about this, I will link it. It was actually the very first episode of the Studio Sessions. Paramount made bids to buy Warner Brothers, and they got denied, which is interesting in and of itself. But more information has now come out, and Warner Brothers has officially basically acknowledged and put themselves up for sale. It seems like in hopes of getting other buyers interested other than Paramount and seeing if any other offers will be put in. I don't think Paramount is done trying. Don't think they're out of the running. But some of the other players in the conversation have been really interesting too. And honestly, it really has put in perspective for me how much this idea of Warner Brothers being bought could change things. A lot, actually. So one of the biggest notions about this that has been ruminating in my head since I heard it was you have Apple, Netflix, all being talked about as potential buyers. And the point was made on the podcast The Town, which I will link, with Matt Bellamy. When he was talking about this, I'm not going to go into everything he said, but one of the points they brought up was that Netflix doesn't like theaters. They are not theater distributors. They have very limitedly, in very certain circumstances, put things in theater. It is not their regular, it is not their normal, and they have adamantly said it is never going to be their normal. So what does them buying Warner Brothers look like? Warner Brothers is one of the original movie studios, one of the originals who brought people to theaters, and they have stuck with and committed to, from everything I've seen on the studio side, from releasing in theaters, from always having a theater distribution. And if Netflix were to buy them, the biggest thing Netflix gets out of that deal is the movies, right? They get the IP, they get the content. It could massively change the studio side as far as distribution, as far as production. If Netflix were to buy it and go, we're just not going to do that part, we're just going to take the IP and shut down everything else. Everything the studio side now makes are Netflix originals and doesn't get theatrical distribution, and it would massively change how movies look. It would massively change our experience of movies if one of the biggest movie studios now is no longer distributing movies into theaters. It would make things look so different. And the level of consolidation in that is kind of scary, honestly. I don't know. I don't know the laws well enough to know if there would be antitrust concerns. But I know just that level of bringing them all under one, and that concern over, well, now there's a monopoly, now Netflix has all of this, is a little scary, especially when you think there's very few original movie studios left that are actually making movies and still running. You have Warner Brothers, you have Paramount, you really only have Disney. There's not that many studios actually even left still going, especially not that are of the original founding studios of Hollywood. which Warner Brothers is. I just really get concerned that it would shift things in a massively bad way if Netflix were to be the ones to buy Warner Brothers. And I think Hollywood is already struggling. Like, Hollywood already isn't doing well. And I think that would just almost be another nail in the coffin. Netflix might not see it that way because they probably see themselves as a part of Hollywood. They probably see themselves as a part of this picture. And I don't even know how much interest in buying Warner Brothers Netflix even has. Again, I would think the draw for them is the IP, is the HBO shows, is the movies, and not the studio itself. And very, very recently, Netflix has already doubled down on, they're not making deals with theaters. They are not going to regularly distribute their movies to theaters. Like, that's a continuing theme. So it would seem likely they would shut that down too. I don't know. I think if they were to buy it and just own it, I think that's what's actually best, is for somebody that is not going to change how they're doing things, but just own it, to be the ones that buy it. I think other streamers buying them does make me nervous for the future. I don't know. I don't know if Apple is even interested either, but I'm more intrigued and like struck by the idea of Netflix buying them, just because of that notion of like, would that be what they would do? And what would that look like? Would the idea of shutting down the studio and not releasing any Warner Brothers movies theatrically anymore be as bad of a thing as I'm concerned about it being? I feel like it would be pretty bad. Like, I feel like it would make a significant shift, and I don't know if it would be for the better. See, in a market like this, competition is good. Competition is what helps it thrive, makes it healthy. Like, more studios is healthier. Everybody's competing. Everybody's called to a higher standard to compete in the market, right? That's the whole function of a market. But Netflix bringing Warner Brothers under them, especially with everything Netflix already has as far as streaming and everything, kind of feels like Netflix now will have an even bigger advantage over everybody else and kind of be too big for anybody else to even have a chance. I don't know. Maybe I'm making more of this than there needs to be. I would love to hear anybody's thoughts on this. If you think that this would be good or bad, what you think it would look like. I'm already seeing concerns of what this would do. To my understanding, from what I'm seeing, most people in Hollywood do not like the idea of Netflix buying Warner Brothers. I think Warner Brothers is probably hoping a private investor will just come in and give them a good deal, and then they can just keep going along doing what they're doing. I don't know if that's actually going to be a thing either. We'll see how this whole thing pans out. But with Warner Brothers basically putting themselves up for sale, we do know they will be sold at some point. They will be bought by somebody. And I think the conversation of who that is is actually a bigger deal than maybe I even thought before originally when this idea came out. Because before I was just like, oh wow, Warner Brothers being owned by somebody else, that's, you know, that's crazy to think about. And now it's like, oh, well, but who? And who buys Warner Brothers actually seems like it'll make a more significant change, or is a more significant deciding factor on what things look like than I thought. Because who buys them is gonna look different depending on who it is. It would have very different outcomes, or could potentially have massively different outcomes. So really interesting to think about. I don't know how I feel about them being sold still, but I mean, I get we're at that point, so it doesn't really have a part of the conversation anymore. They are going to be at some point. So we'll see. I don't know. It's very interesting to me. I just wanted to talk about that update and then talk about that part of the conversation with Netflix. Like, that's crazy to think about for me. I don't know how I feel about that. I love Netflix, right? Like, I have no shade towards Netflix at all. I watch Netflix all the time. In fact, I just finished watching Nobody Wants This. Such a good show. I do love that show. I love a lot on Netflix. No problem with them whatsoever. I do think they have become a bit of a monopoly, though. And I do think that their stance on theaters is more harmful to movies than good. I get they're a streamer. They started as a streamer. They have no roots in theaters or anything. But I just don't see that being healthy for the film industry to only be streaming and have no theaters. And theaters could not be open and survive based off of what Netflix has done in theaters. So there's no place to think that they would help keep theaters open. There's already very few movies going into theaters right now, right? Like, so much fewer movies are being released. That scares me to think that even less might be being released in theaters if Netflix were to buy Warner Brothers. I do remember there was a conversation, I think with somebody from Netflix, or like about a statement they made that they weren't going to partner with theaters, but that they did make one-off deals for like Greta Gerwig to release certain things in theaters. And so they did special agreements. So that paired with the K-pop Demon Hunters whole phenomenon and event, it's not like they've never had a taste of the success in theaters, but they still are not interested in partnering with theaters. And yeah, I don't see a world in which not having as many theaters, not having as many studios releasing movies into theaters is healthy for the film industry. I just don't. I think it would shift things really badly. I don't know. That's my thoughts. And who even knows if any of that's a concern? I just thought it was an interesting idea to play out of like, what would that look like? And what impact could that have industry-wide? Because it does feel like this whole deal, whoever does buy them, whatever that choice is, does have implications for impacts industry-wide. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I hope it goes well. So that's the update on Warner Brothers and the sale of Warner Brothers. I also wanted to talk about some fun, scary movies. We have Halloween coming up this week. So I wanted to take a second to talk about a movie that I did not talk about in my top ones, but is a top one for me. But I was trying to consolidate my list for that episode. And that's Psycho. Psycho is a classic. Psycho is a classic. It's one of the originals. Like, it's so good, and is one that I do rewatch and love. And it is a psychological thriller more than anything else, right? It's not really a slasher. It's not gory. It's not really scary in that way. It's scary psychologically. It's scary by how disturbed and disturbing Norman Bates is. And the reveal at the end. The way they do the reveal at the end. The way that Alfred Hitchcock has that set up is so good. And, oh gosh, just the way you see Norman Bates just go crazy. It's so good. So if you have never checked out Psycho, watch it. It's so worth it. It's so good. And there are 3 sequels. I think there's 4 movies total. The ones after are okay. Of course, I'm gonna say again, the original is the best. But particularly, there's an interesting conversation about things in, like, I think it's the 3rd or the 4th one, where they're talking about the idea of Norman Bates being a dad, and, like, how does he feel about that, and would that be, like, so interesting. So if you are looking for a good movie to watch this Halloween, Psycho is the best, a classic, and definitely one worth watching, especially if you haven't seen it before. So yeah, that's my recommendation. I already shared a little bit about what I've been watching. I've been watching a lot of Nobody Wants This. I binged the 2nd season. It was so good. Be interesting to see what they continue doing with the whole storyline. I have loved it so far. Kristen Bell is really funny. Yeah, so that's what I've been watching. I would love to hear what you've been watching if you want to leave it in the comments. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I will talk to you next week. This podcast is a Butterfly Entertainment production. You can keep up with all of our podcasts, YouTube videos, films, and other projects on our Instagram page. We are at Butterfly Entertainment Group. Thanks for listening.